So tonight's webinar is going to be on sleep and stress management and recovery, the importance of all three, and also how to apply them into life so it's actually useful for you and it's not just me rambling on. So we'll do this. We'll go through the slides. If you're watching it live and you've got questions, leave questions in the comments bit and I'll answer them towards the end. I'll leave this up and I'll also post a link for all the online team. You will get a link sent out to you, and then I'll post a link in the Facebook group as well for you all to be able to go back and watch it later on. So sleep, recovery, stress management. What are we going to cover? Why is recovery the most important factor? Sleep, how to improve it, things that you might not realise need improving. We're going to talk about your recovery, how you track recovery and how we implement sort of recovery protocols to improve your recovery. Stress management, and also going to touch a little bit on working from home. I know a lot of people are still working from home, me included. So I'm going to talk through some of the things that I implement when working from home to sort of manage stress and to sort of help separate work from home. If you're working from home, you can see now I'm set up in the living room, so it can be really easy to sort of merge the two and not really feel like you're switched off from work at the end of the day. So I'm going to talk through some things to help clearly define what is work and what is home, and how to sort of get that divide in your head to help you feel more relaxed. And then we'll talk about how to apply all of that to life. So recovery is number one, simple as that. It impacts everything. If you aren't focusing on your recovery, your results will suffer. Everything else will suffer. Work will suffer, sleep will suffer, digestion will suffer. In terms of training, you're not going to grow as much muscle, so you're not going to get stronger, or you're not going to get as strong as quickly as you could if your recovery was better. Same comes with fat loss. If your goal is fat loss, which 90% of you have the goal of fat loss, if your recovery is impacted or if your recovery isn't the best, then the way you can effectively lose fat won't be the best. Poor recovery equals poor results. It's as simple as that. So let's just go back. So these are all of the things that sort of impacted from poor recovery. First thing we need to focus on is your sleep. It's going to be the biggest thing that impacts your recovery. Your sleep is your time to recover. It's your biggest portion of the day that you spend, or your body spends, recovering. Everything else has stopped. Your consciousness, your conscious part of your brain is switched off essentially to allow the subconscious part of your body to come in and do all the repair work that it needs to. So how much sleep do you need? You need between 7.5 to 9 hours. I know everyone always says 6 to 8, but that doesn't really work in terms of your sleep cycles and the way your sleep cycles work. So you sleep in around about 90-minute sleep cycles. This varies person to person, but it is always around about 90 minutes. You want to aim for at least 4 sleep cycles, which would bring you up to that 7.5-hour mark. Wrong. 5 sleep cycles, which would bring you up to that 7.5-hour mark. 5 sleep cycles, 5 90-minute cycles. Those 90-minute cycles are broken down into 3 main phases: REM, light sleep, and REM is in 2 stages, so there you 2. So you've got light sleep when you initially fall asleep, lasts for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you've got 2 stages of REM, which is repetitive eye movement, which is your deeper stages of sleep. Often when you wake up during the night, it's in that first 10 to 15 minutes of light sleep. you cycle through that every 90 minutes. So at the end of every roughly 90 minutes, you go back into that light sleep stage. If you're not getting the best quality sleep and you're not falling into a deep enough sleep, when you get back to that light stage every 90 minutes, that's when things will wake you up. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that will affect that, and some of the things or some of the reasons why you're waking up. First, we need to talk about quality sleep. So there's a difference between just getting and going to bed for 9 hours and actually getting good quality sleep. You who go to bed for 9 hours and be really restless, wake up through the night 3 or 4 times, wake up in the morning feeling awful, and some nights you can get 7 hours of sleep and wake up feeling really good because you've either had really good sleep or really poor sleep quality. Sleep quality is the overriding factor in sleep. It's not so much how many hours you get, but it's how many hours of good quality sleep you get. As you can see there, 7 hours of good quality sleep will always outweigh 9 hours of shit sleep. Little fact for you, a lot of people don't know, is that you are not meant to wake up for a week during the night at all. So from the moment you go to sleep to the moment you wake up in the morning, that should be unbroken. If it's broken for any reason, if you wake up during the night, often in that light period of sleep, it's because you haven't fell into a deep enough sleep and you're not getting good enough quality sleep. So some of the things that can impact that, and there is a lot. Stress plays a part in it, hence why we're going to talk about stress management in this. The routine you do before bed impacts it. Things that you've ate, caffeine intake, when you last trained, things that you did before bed, they all add up to the quality of sleep that you're going to get in the night. So how do we improve quality of sleep? So if you're not sleeping for 7.5 to 9 hours at night unbroken, then these are some of the things that you can implement to improve that and try and get a full night of unbroken sleep, which is always the goal. Bedtime routine is key. So the things you do in the hour to 2 hours before going to bed is massively important and plays a big role in how well you're going to sleep at night. So when I talk about bedtime routine, I'm talking about things like blue light. So blue light can be anything. It can be the light in your room, phone screens, TV screens, even looking at your watch, it gives off some level of blue light. Any artificial light gives off blue light waves. Excuse me. The blue light waves signal chemical responses in your brain to produce serotonin. Serotonin is one of the chemicals that will keep you awake. If you're producing more serotonin than you should be in the nighttime, then you're going to have a tough sleep, or you're going to have a less than ideal sleep. So one of the first things we can do is start to reduce the blue light that we're exposed to during the night. One of the big ways we can do this is first getting into a cycle of seeing natural light at the right times of day. So if you've seen on my stories, I'm always going on about it, trying to view the sunset and sunrise, get your heads out. The sunset and sunrise both give off different types of light waves. Early morning sunrise gives off the bluer type of light waves to make you feel awake. Before we had clocks and alarm clocks and we were living in caves, we would wake up when it was daylight and we would go to sleep when it was dark. Our body is designed to do that. It's only through all of the things and the technology and the routines that we have now that we've broke that cycle. Our body doesn't understand that though, and our body still wants to operate in that way. And that's why when we bring in a lot of artificial light in the nighttime, it impacts our sleep, because our body doesn't know how to handle it and how to combat it and how to improve our sleep even with those factors in play. So one of the first things you can do in the morning, go and view the sunrise. So the sunrise is the sunlight anytime between 6 and 9 a.m. in the morning. If you can view that directly, be in that sunlight, even getting it exposed on your skin, it will start the chemical reactions in your body, and it will time the chemical reactions correctly so the chemicals are released at the right time throughout the day to mean that by the time it comes to the evening, you are in a better position to sleep. Serotonin and melatonin and dopamine are all produced at the right times throughout the day, which is vital for you being able to get a good sleep at night. Same applies for in the evening. Try and view the sunset. Try and view, if you look at the sunset, you know the sunset is more of a pinky and orangey colour. Pinks and oranges and reds react differently. Our eyes absorb those and they start sending signals to the brain to start producing melatonin and other chemicals involved in making you want to fall asleep. So it's a really easy thing to do, and you will notice it straight away, is if you go for a walk in the evening and you go at sunset and you watch the sunset, I guarantee by the end of the walk and it starts to get really dark, you will start yawning, you will start feeling really tired, because that's your body naturally signaling to you, right, it's time to go to bed. So there's the first thing you do: light exposure through natural light, sunrise and sunset. Implement that every day and you'll start getting your body clock into sync, into the right pattern of waking up and going to sleep at the right times. So that's where we start building our routine towards sleep. Next thing, I've put a third there, should have been second. Blue light cut off. In that hour to 2 hours before you're going to bed, try to reduce as much blue light exposure as possible. So things like turning the telly off an hour before bed. Don't have your phone on and sit and scrolling through Instagram at night, because it's going to keep you awake. That blue light exposure off your phone screen is going to keep you awake. I know you can put night mode on, you can put red light filters on and stuff like that, and they do help. They will reduce it a little bit, but there will still be blue light coming through and being absorbed by your eyes. Bedroom lights, turn them off. When you go into bed, try and get your room as dark as possible. You want no artificial external light coming in your room at all. Try and get like blackout blinds, the ones that completely block the light, especially if you work shifts and you're going to be up at night and sleeping in the day. Blackout blinds are going to be a massive help for making sure that you get good quality sleep. Other things that you can implement on MacBooks and Apple computers, you can download a software called Flux, which is a red light filter that goes over your screen and it switches on automatically towards the end of the evening if you're still working on your laptop late at night, to help again start reducing the blue light intake. You can also get blue light blocking glasses, which is probably the best bet. They're about £20 on Amazon. Stick those on about 2 hours before you go to bed. If you're sitting watching the telly, if you've got extra work to do, if you're pottering around and the lights are on in the house and it's later at night, it's going to help you block out as much of that blue light as possible, so that when the time it comes to actually going to sleep, shutting your eyes and going to sleep, you're in a better position because you've absorbed less blue light later on in the evening. So the next thing you can implement is carbohydrates. I cannot speak tonight. Carbohydrates before bed. So a carb meal, again, 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed. Having a meal quite high in carbohydrates, 50 to 60 grams, is going to help you fall asleep more. If you ever go out for a big meal, you get a big dessert, you feel full and you sat there and you feel like, oh, I could do with a little nap. Christmas dinner, for example, once you've had your roast on Christmas Day, you're always ready for a nap. Same thing applies. Because your body is in a state called a parasympathetic state, which is our rest and digest state. After you've had food, you're in that calm state. Your parasympathetic state is the same state you're in when you go to sleep. So we're trying to emulate that state and create that state before you go to bed. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people will put carbs in before bed and it'll make them feel really awake. It is very person dependent. For me, it doesn't really matter either way. Next thing, a cool room. Your room needs to be slightly cooler than body temperature. You need to be in quite a chilled room. Get warm under the blankets, yes, but keep the outside temperature of the room warm. If the room is too hot, you will wake up in the night because you're hot. So we're trying to remove things that can cause you to wake up during the night. Supplements. If you've ticked all those boxes, you've got a good routine, you're cutting the blue light off before you go to bed, your blue light filter is on your phone, you've got your blue light blocking glasses on, you've had a little meal before bed, and you've got yourself into a nice calm state before you go to sleep, in those 2 hours before you go to bed, and you still want to improve your sleep further, then you can implement some supplements. These are all natural supplements. They're produced either by the body or from plants. First one, 5-HTP. 5-HTP is what makes you go to sleep. It is a precursor to melatonin. Melatonin is the big hormone involved in sending you to sleep. The idea is you take some 5-HTP before you go to bed. As your body starts producing some 5-HTP, you've already given it a load of 5-HTP to then increase the amount of melatonin that you produce, and then you will begin to fall asleep and stay asleep for longer during the night. Next one is magnesium. This one is 50-50. Some people, it will make them wake up. So for me, if I have magnesium before I go to bed, I will be up all night. Whereas some people who are deficient in magnesium, who just aren't getting enough magnesium in through their diet, magnesium deficiency can play a role in poor quality sleep. Next one again is 50-50. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is fantastic. It's a fantastic stress reduction supplement. It's also a fantastic sleep supplement. There is tons and tons of research out there. Literally just Google ashwagandha and you will get reels and reels of pages telling you about all of the different benefits. There is too many to list in this webinar. It could probably have its own webinar to itself. So implementing that, especially if you are in a high stress situation at the moment, if you've got a very stressful job and you've got poor quality sleep, introducing ashwagandha both morning and night can help massively in one, managing the stress and also helping to improve your sleep quality. Melatonin, so as I spoke before, melatonin is one of the hormones that plays a massive factor in falling asleep, in you falling asleep. So you can actually supplement with extra melatonin. It takes out that 5-HTP precursor. However, the melatonin, because it is actual melatonin, it can just knock you out, and it's sometimes a little bit too potent for people, and that's why I've put it last. I try and avoid recommending that for anyone really, and just going with the 5-HTP as the precursor. So recovery, how do you know if your recovery is bad or not? What things can we do, what things can we track to find out if your recovery is bad? First thing we can do is assess your resting heart rate. If you know what your average resting heart rate is, if you start tracking it down, even if it's just once a week, a lot of phones, if you've got a smartwatch now, they will just give you an average heart rate, an average resting heart rate anyway across the week, so you can assess that and you can get a good idea across the month what your resting heart rate usually is. Then when we start adding in things like training, if we start adding in a dieting phase where we're in a calorie deficit and we're tired and we're doing a lot more steps, or if you've got a lot of work on at the moment and you're just absolutely stressed out with work, you may start noticing, if you're tracking it, that your resting heart rate is starting to elevate. That can be an early warning sign that your recovery is a little bit impaired, is that your resting heart rate is starting to elevate. So if your resting heart rate is 60 all the time and you know it's 60, you might notice that 2 weeks later it's gone up to 65, 66, it may even be up to 70 or 80. That would be a massive red flag that we need to address your recovery protocols. Next thing, digestion. So if you're not sleeping properly, your digestion will be massively impacted. There was a study where they got one group to sleep for 6 hours and they got one group to sleep for 5 hours. 6 hours was deemed the minimum amount of sleep that someone needs to operate normally. So there's a 6 hour group with a control group, and then there was a 5 hour group and a 4 hour sleep group. In the morning, so they got them all to go to sleep, they all slept. The 6 hour group woke up fine, tested their blood sugars, and they were okay. The group that lost 1 hour sleep over just one night registered as pre-diabetic in the morning, because their insulin sensitivity and their ability to produce insulin was massively impaired just through losing an hour of sleep. So you're not going to be able to digest carbohydrates as well. You're actually registering as pre-diabetic first thing in the morning, because your sleep or lack thereof has impacted it massively. You've also got two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. They're your hunger and your fullness hormones. One of them makes you feel full. So when you eat food, you'll produce leptin. That sends a little signal to your brain to tell you, right, yeah, we've had enough food, we don't need any more, we're full. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. When you haven't ate all day and you've been rushing around, ghrelin is the hormone that's released to remind you to go and eat. Going back to when we were animals, when we were living in caves, we were needed to be reminded to go and hunt, to go and eat, to go and find food. That was the role of ghrelin. When your sleep is impaired, when your recovery is impaired, when you're not getting the best sleep, ghrelin is massively increased and leptin is massively reduced. So this means that you often feel a lot more hungry than you are, and you also don't feel full as quickly as you would if you'd had an adequate amount of sleep. So another factor, if you start noticing you're not digesting food very well, you're feeling a little bit bloated, or you're just feeling a lot more hungry than usual, these are all signs that your recovery is a little bit off. So there's another red flag. So there's two. You've got your resting heart rate and you've got your digestion. Next, soreness and DOMS. So the muscle ache after you train. If you start noticing you become unusually sore after training, or it's taking you a lot longer to stop feeling sore after training, this can be another red flag that we need to look at your recovery. If you've all of a sudden upped your training massively, or you've upped how much you're moving around, and you start getting aches and pains but they don't seem to be going away, or niggles start to flare up, especially if you're in a dieting phase where you're not eating as much food and the food isn't there to help you recover, these are other warning signs that your recovery is impacted. If you're not recovering properly, you are going to be sore for longer, you're going to have DOMS for longer, and they're going to be more painful, they're going to be more obvious and more prominent. So there's another thing that you need to kind of mentally stay aware of, mentally check on. Sleep quality, we've already gone over. Sleep quality plays a massive role in tracking your sleep quality. If you've got a sleep tracking app, they're not the most accurate, but if you've got it, it gives you some data to go off. If you notice that you start waking up, you normally sleep through, and over the last week you've been waking up 2-3 times in the night, chances are recovery is starting to be impacted and we need to address your recovery. Finally, this is a sort of extreme end, but again is another indicator. Along with resting heart rate, I do my blood pressure quite regularly because I train very intensely and quite frequently, and it's just a factor that I would like to keep on top of. You don't need to do this, but it's always nice to know that your blood pressure is in the right place. However, blood pressure, if it starts to rise, is another sign. You're stressed out, your stress levels are high, this will increase blood pressure. If you're not sleeping properly, this will increase blood pressure. So these are other red flags. Last thing you want is to be pushing your blood pressure up just because you're not recovering properly. So a lot of this comes down to stress management and warning signs. If you're in a dieting phase, or if you're trying to gain muscle and you're training hard and you're exercising a lot and you're moving around a lot, you're putting stress on top of your body. You're putting your body into a stressful position and you're forcing it to have to work harder to recover. If we're not trying to mitigate as much stress as possible, as much stress as we can control as possible, then the extra stress that you're adding in through exercise and through dieting is going to mean that you're in a really poor position for sleep, for digestion, and for your mood. So some of the warning signs, we've already gone over them. Poor sleep, irritability. If things are getting on your nerves that wouldn't normally, sign that you're a little bit stressed, a little bit more stressed than normal. Again, digestion. If your stress levels start to rise, this will impact how well you digest food. If your rest and heart rate is higher, you won't go into that rest and digest phase that we talked about earlier, where you're better able to digest food. And so you're going to start getting indigestion more, you're going to start feeling bloated more, and you're going to start feeling a little bit sluggish. Another one, especially this one is quite prominent for me when I know my stress levels are getting quite high, is I'll start feeling irrationally anxious, or just generally fatigued in the most random parts of the day. I could have just had 2 big coffees and I would just feel really fatigued. It will, that is normally the earliest warning time for me that I maybe need to taper it off a little bit next week, sort of take my training down a little bit, maybe lower my steps, maybe increase my calories a little bit, just to help improve my recovery before things start going down the road of really poor sleep and waking up to go to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a night and just feeling crap all day long. So on that note, act sooner rather than later. You always want to jump on it as quick as possible. If you notice little things starting to change, okay, I didn't sleep really well last night, okay, let's see what happens tonight. 2 nights in a row, okay, I'm really not sleeping, okay, let's look at my resting heart rate. Okay, my resting heart rate's gone up by 4 or 5 beats per minute this week, and I'm not sleeping really well, and I did feel a bit bloated after I ate my tea tonight. All the pieces of the puzzle start fitting together. Jump on it. This is where we need to start implementing things to manage that stress and start reducing it. One of the ways we can do that mental stress wise, by switching off at the end of the day. One of the things that works really well is journaling. If you are very busy, if your head feels like it's constantly spinning, you've always got things going on in your head, journaling at the end of the day is a fantastic way of sort of organizing your brain. The way I imagine it in my head is that I've got a load of Lego blocks and someone's just tipped them into my head, and that's what my head's like at the end of the day. There's just Lego blocks jumbling around inside. By me journaling and writing down at the end of the day something that's gone really well for the day, something I'm happy about. This is why we do it in the Facebook group, is you need to big yourself up. You need to tell yourself what you're happy about. Write down 3 goals that need to be done the next day, 3 big tasks that need to be completed the following day, the 3 biggest ones that are jumbling around in your head. Write them down on paper. Once you've got those 3 things down, I want you to write down 3 maybes. If you get the 3 big ones done, then write down the 3 maybes. And then write down your overall goal. What's your long-term goal, and what are you going to do by the end of the week that's going to get you to that goal? And what have you done so far this week that has moved you towards that goal? By writing all this down at the end of the day, it's organising your brain, it's helping you to switch off from the end of the day. It's a signal to your brain, it becomes part of your routine that that's the end of the day, and this is the time where your brain starts to switch off before you go to bed. The next big thing is separating work from home, and I think on the other slide, yeah. So working from home, like me, you might not have had an office when lockdown happened, or a dedicated office at home, should I say. So you end up working, like me, on a kitchen table, or you're working on your couch, or you're working in your bedroom, or wherever it may be. The lines between work and home become very blurred. So it's very important to set clear boundaries of where is work and where is not. Just like when you're in work, if you're in the office or you're in your place of work, you wouldn't eat your lunch where you work. You wouldn't eat your lunch at your desk and work, or you would try not to. You definitely don't want to be. Do the same at home. I will never eat my food, I will never eat my meals sat in front of this laptop. The couch is 3 foot behind me, but I will purposely go and sit there because that is where I eat food. That is where I switch off from work and I go and eat food. Same with bed. Laptop doesn't come to bed with me because that's where I go to sleep. Separating work from home. If you're sitting watching the TV at night, don't sit and work on your laptop and watch the television. Separate the two. If you've got work to do, switch the television off, do the work at the place where you do your work on your laptop, finish the work, shut the laptop off, and then go to the place where you relax, and put those clearly defined boundaries in so that you can mentally separate yourself from this is where I work, this is where I relax, this is where I sleep, this is where I eat. Another part of that is scheduling your day. Actually scheduling your whole day, not just the things that you need to do at work. Everyone schedules work and then lets everything else outside of that in their own life slip. Schedule everything. What can often happen is you fall behind with work. You think, oh, well, I'll just finish this, then I'll eat. I'll just do this, then and then next minute you're 2-3 hours behind when you should have ate because you're working at home and the kitchen's only over there. Set a lunch break. Set times, right, 10:30 I stop, I make a coffee, I have a snack for 20 minutes, then I go back to work. At 11:30 I stop for 45 minutes, I have my lunch, laptop away, move away from the laptop, go and have your lunch, separate, come back, continue your work. Schedule it in, set it into your diary. If you've got appointments in work and you've scheduled them into your diary, schedule your day for you and your meals into your diary as well, so that it's there and it's visual and it becomes more real. Like when we're talking about writing your goals down, physically writing them down on paper, you're making it real. It being in your head and it being on paper are two very different things. When it goes onto paper, it becomes very real and much more, there's a higher chance of you actually doing it and actually following it through. Final one on this is saying no. Sounds a bit mad, but learning to say no when managing stress and sleep and recovery. If you know and if you can see that you are starting to go down that slope, you're seeing a lot of red flags towards high stress, poor sleep, poor recovery, poor digestion, poor mood, practice saying no to things. The best way of thinking about this is if you're in work and someone's asked you to do something, and normally you would just be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll just do it, because you don't want to look bad, or you want to appear like you're working really hard, or you do enjoy your job and you want to do well at your job. If you're then taking on more work and becoming even more stressed and more fatigued, you're not going to do the new work any better, and you're not going to do the work that you've already got well. So by saying no to the tasks that you don't really need to do, you're actually going to end up improving how well you actually work and how much you can do. You're going to improve your recovery, you're going to improve your results, you're going to improve your mood and your health outside of work as well as in work, by simply just saying no to the jobs that don't need to be done. One of the best things to do in that situation is just ask yourself, if someone's coming to you with a new task or something new to do, ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario if I say no to this? And what is the best case scenario if I say no to this? Once you've got those two answers, ask yourself, how often is that worst case scenario going to happen? More than likely, it never is. Whereas the best case scenario normally has quite a high chance of it happening. That's going to then reinforce in your mind, okay, I can probably say no to this task because I've got an absolute shitload of work to get done already, and I don't really need to do that.